There's a new spin on casual dining near Drake University. Lucky Horse Beer and Burgers. Craveable faves, flatbreads, delicious burgers, frozen cocktails, and a crazy cool vibe. Get to Lucky Horse Beer and Burgers today.
Mr. President, Dr. Biden, Madam Vice President, Mr. Emhoff, Americans, and the world. When day comes, we ask ourselves, where can we find light in this never-ending shade? The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We've braved the belly of the beast. We've learned that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notions of what just isn't always just is. And yet the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we've weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. We, the successors of a country and a time where a skinny Black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and conditions of man. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first. We must first put our differences aside. We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true. That even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division. Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the blade, but in all the bridges we've made. That is the promised glade, the hill we climb, if only we dare it, because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the past we step into and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy. And this effort very nearly succeeded. But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared it at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power to author a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So, while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us? We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be, a country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation, because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain: if we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. With every breath from my bronze-pounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the gold-limbed hills of the West. We will rise from the windswept Northeast, where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South. We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover in every known nook of our nation, in every corner called our country. Our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn blooms as we free it. For there was always light, if only we're brave enough to see it, if only we're brave enough to be it.
My goodness, what a speech, huh, sir? Folks, welcome to the program. Honored to have Dr. Frantz Whitfield on this historic day, celebrating an inauguration yesterday that I just thought was beautiful in so many moments. Ms. Gorman's speech that we just saw was my personal highlight. Dr. Frantz, what really spoke to you yesterday?
Well, first of all, Brent, thank you so much for having me on again this morning. When I think about yesterday and when I think about the inauguration, yesterday to me means that our country is on the path to healing again as a nation. I think the feeling that I experienced yesterday was an indescribable feeling. I felt like, I could finally breathe for once. I was watching the news and watching inauguration unfold yesterday, and it really felt like America again. And I really don't know what these last 4 years were, but as I woke up this morning to prepare for today, I had this sense of feeling safe again. When I think about President Biden, I feel like the president has a big heart. I feel like he's going to lead this country to where they need to be. And he's going to treat this country like it was his own family. One of my favorite presidents, President John F. Kennedy, he once said, let us not seek the Republican answer. Let us not seek the Democratic answer. But the right answer is what we should select. He said, let us not seek to fix the blame for the past, but let us accept our own responsibility for the future. And Brent, I really feel like President Biden is going to be a president for all people. And you can see that in his diverse cabinet and his administration. And so as he, takes the reins of leading the country back to restoration, let us not continue focusing on the past. 45's job is done. He's back at Mar-a-Lago again. But I think what we ought to focus on now is let's take the responsibility for moving us into a bright future.
It's interesting you use that quote. One of the books on the shelf right there is John Delaney's book, and it's called The Right Answer. And that piece of John Kennedy was actually what inspired him to run for president. And he told me, I ended up working with John. He said that had he known that Joe Biden was going to run, that he wouldn't have run for president. They're very similar in their outlooks. Yeah, how many firsts are we talking about here? It's a historic inauguration, and down to the small things. And I'm going to play here. I'm going to wrap up today's program showing the three former presidents talking, but there were many different things to look for. I'm wearing a purple tie today. Why? The former first ladies all wore purple yesterday, and obviously purple color is significant of independent politics here in this country. Red and blue makes purple, and that's why it's been embraced as a color to bring folks together, to bring the two sides together. But down to nuts and bolts, I'm going to pull these pictures up again here. So I first became aware of you, Dr. Whitfield, when these photos were happening. Dr. Whitfield was an early supporter of Biden's run this last election cycle, and you stuck with him. I mean, even when things were flagging and they had the bus, and there were definitely some moments here in Iowa where the Biden campaign really just didn't feel like it was sparking. It just didn't feel like it was going to happen. But you stood by him. I guess my question is, what first drew you to the Biden campaign, and when things got lean, what made you say, you know what, I'm gonna stick with this guy?
Yeah, well, Brent, in terms of the city of Waterloo, which is the largest Black population in the state of Iowa, myself and our church is always the kind of first stop for candidates when they come to the city. During the presidential election season, I had received personal phone calls from countless candidates, and I was really debating on who I wanted to support. The last go round, I had went with my friend Senator Bernie Sanders, and people kind of thought that I was going to go with him this go round, and I really wasn't sure of what I had wanted to do. So after I had, talked to a lot of the candidates, and they stopped by the church to talk to the congregation, something kind of pricked my heart to pick President Biden. Number one, because he has been in the White House, didn't need any on-the-job training, and I felt like we needed a candidate who had a real chance of winning when you put him up against the president that we just had in office. And so what I did is I reached out to my friend Simone Sanders, who a lot of people know, who is the senior advisor to President Biden. Me and Simone had worked closely together previously on Senator Sanders' campaign. And so I reached out to her and let her know that a few months after the president had announced he was running, that I was interested in giving him my support for president. And so immediately after sharing that information with her, the campaign reached out to me and said, hey, the vice president is going to be in Waterloo next week, and we want you to introduce him. And so I was very excited to have the opportunity. Got the phone call, and they said, well, we want you to meet him at the airport. We want you to be the first face that he sees when he gets to town. And so we got to the airport, and his airplane came in, and we had a chance to chat and ride together over to the event. And that day I officially gave him my endorsement, and something inside of me just told me that he was going to be the next president. Now, a lot of people thought I was foolish. They say, well, why would you endorse a candidate so early with all these people who are running? And I said, it was just a feeling that I had. And I'm glad that I stuck with my decision because I was right. And he's now the president of the United States, number 46.
People don't necessarily understand that, do they? When you come to Iowa, I mean, Dr. Frantz, you had personal friends, you had close friends saying, we got 20 candidates coming in, 17 to 20, depending on what time of the year it was. We got so many candidates coming in. Why close any doors? Why not play the field? Why not work it out? Figure out, how many, bold-faced names you can get walking in through the door, et cetera. I mean, it is a beautiful thing, the Iowa caucus is the process of getting to meet the candidates. But yeah, I did not know you. I'd never met you. And I remember thinking back then, like, wow, that is really a bold thing to do. And when Biden's campaign, it was drifting for a while. There was a couple, like a month and a half in there where it just wasn't getting traction, and you were posting, sharing, still having events and all that for the Biden campaign. And I absolutely know that you kept people's eyes on the Biden campaign in a very real way. And it's, so then Pete Buttigieg ended up basically barely beating Bernie Sanders in the caucuses, but then shortly thereafter endorsed the Biden campaign. That must have been a big feeling of you got vindicated there, in a manner of speaking. When did you start feeling the tide turning toward Biden and the presidency?
Yeah, so I knew that in terms of Iowa, you never really knew how it was going to turn out, especially when we had the amount of candidates that we had. Um, I just figured that it would be different. But also when you look at the young people that we have in the state of Iowa, that's really the crowd that you really want to look at because they're our future. And they decided who they wanted. And, the turnout of the Iowa caucus was something that really shocked me. I thought that it would, go a different way. But, that's what you have to deal with when you deal with politics. But I really think, the shift took place with Mr. Clyburn and South Carolina. And I really think that that's kind of what shifted the pendulum of the Biden campaign because, it's often said that you cannot win the presidency without the African American vote. And I believe that really showed how true that was. And so I think without Mr. Clyburn's help and the people out in South Carolina, I think we would be in a different situation today. So I think that's kind of really what shifted things to the victory that, we're now celebrating.
People look at the Iowa caucuses and people who don't live here might not understand that the Iowa caucuses aren't necessarily about picking who's going to be the next nominee. It's more about winnowing the field. It's about having a platform for many different voices to have a shot at running for president. If they catch some fire, they move forward. But winnowing the field is really what the caucuses do very well. But, one of these photos that pop up here, that event right there, you had the gentleman there in the yellow shirts, the firefighters, and that was a pretty strong group here for Biden. But I'll tell you, when he did events, we got used to, Senator Elizabeth Warren was pulling huge numbers for her events. Senator Cory Booker was pulling huge numbers for his events, but the Biden campaign really wasn't. They were fine, but you can see in this room, I mean, we're talking about, hundreds of people and certainly not thousands. Was there a time, looking back just a short time ago, year and a half ago, where you were like, the campaign's not hitting, but I'm going to stick it out, or you just made your decision and you're going to roll with it?
Yeah, it was really tough, Brent, because as soon as I gave the endorsement and as soon as I said that I was going to be supporting then Vice President Biden, the campaign put me to work. I think I was probably doing interviews every other day, spreading the message about President Biden and what I feel that he could do for the country. So it was a little nerve wracking because, we did see the crowds, of other candidates and what they were doing. But I really think that the country was looking for a candidate who had the experience. And that was kind of my script or talk during the entire campaign was having a person in office who does not need on-the-job training. And so we had a lot of great candidates. As I said, I received personal phone calls from all of them. Cory Booker was the first phone call that I received when he came for one of the Democratic dinners here in Iowa. I was one of the first people he called when he got off the plane. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, we actually met in New York, and had dinner and talked about the campaign. A lot of great candidates that I met, but I just had this feeling about President Biden and knew that he could win. And, we celebrated the victory on yesterday, and he's now inaugurated as president. Now it's time to get to work.
I just don't know if people understand that. I mean, it's not like you had a staffer. It's not like you had third down. You had Senator Cory Booker calling you and putting it to you. I mean, that's one thing I've seen. Like these politicians, when they come to Iowa, it's like they've got 26 hours. They've got to make some stuff happen. So when you've got, someone who has been elected to federal office at the Senate level, they call it the world's most exclusive club. When you have someone that's that driven, standing in front of you saying, "I want you on my team," that is not a small ask. I mean, how do you let somebody down like that? How do you say, "I'm sorry, Senator Gillibrand. I'm sorry, Senator Booker. I can't back you up."
Yeah, Brent, it was hard. I'm still getting used to that. Still getting used to the attention. If you follow me on social media, a lot of those candidates follow me personally. And one day I was, looking at my phone and I seen all these notifications and I'm like, what's going on? And so I seen that I got personal follows from Cory Booker and Gillibrand and Eric Swalwell. And, I did feel kind of bad, not going with them, but I had to make the right decision. Bernie Sanders follows me on social media. And but the most important one was when I received a follow on Twitter from our First Lady, Dr. Jill Biden. And so, out of I think 22 people that she follows on social media, I happen to be one of the people she follows, and so that's huge. So, I felt bad, but I think I made the right decision.
Dr. Frantz Whitfield, an early Joe Biden supporter in his run for the presidency. And you certainly bet on the right horse, sir. He went through, I mean, the coalescing of different organizations behind his run, basically, like you said, after South Carolina, it definitely changed the dynamic in American politics. I didn't even think that sort of coalition building was possible anymore, but they certainly had, personal calls from former President Obama, personal calls from former First Lady Michelle Obama to people saying, let's get on board. We're going to find a place for you. We're going to make it happen. But this is the person to get us back into the White House. So, as petty as it might sound, congratulations to you for making that choice and standing by it. I drove two different campaign buses and I ran two different Iowa caucus campaigns last stretch. And folks, I just got to tell you, you won't even believe how many candidates come here and make personal asks. So the fact that you chose the Biden campaign and stuck with it, congratulations. And congratulations on getting your candidate into the White House.
Yeah, thank you so much, Brent. I think in closing, I'll say, there's been a lot of talk and a lot of fear about the Iowa caucuses, coming back with us being the first in the nation. And I want to say that, the Iowa Democratic Party has a bright future. And I think we have some great people who are advocating for, the Iowa Democratic Party and the Iowa caucuses. And I really, would love to see us again, be the first in the nation the next go around because it's important to us. It brings a lot of highlights and focus on Iowa. And it shows that, we're doing some great things here. So the future is bright for us, and I'm proud to be an Iowan.
I'll second that. I started a group with Doug Burns, who owns some newspapers here in Iowa. It's called keepiowafirst.org. Check that out. But yeah, Iowans, they take this incredibly seriously. And when just watch an Iowan show up to a campaign event, they're not going to ask, what the candidate is wearing. They're going to ask what they think about the environment. They're going to ask about very specific things. You know, how many candidates have told me that these are the most educated voters that they've ever met? So yes, 100%. Let's keep the caucuses going. They're a great tool for democracy. You know, from people like former Governor Huckabee, who said that the Iowa voter can't be hoodwinked by big flashy billboards. John McCain said the lesson is you can't buy Iowa. Lindsey Graham said, you know, weddings, funerals, bar mitzvahs, I'll do it. You know, Bernie Sanders saying, you know, the Iowa caucuses are one of the last true examples of democracy in this country. So yes, huge supporters of the caucuses. That's why I moved here from California. But big thanks to you, sir, to come up. I was up celebrating last night as well, so I appreciate the early morning. And to close today, we're going to show. I had two highlights yesterday of the inauguration. I enjoyed a lot of it, but the poem that we just showed, I tweeted that with just a hashtag the future. That to me was a breakthrough moment. I think people are going to re-examine what it means to not only give a political speech, but the heights you can go to in a political speech, and put that piece of music on it. And that's now on my Twitter feed if you want to watch that again. But I also was moved by the three presidents who were talking. They spoke. You don't see these three go on camera very often. And I went in and I brought up the shadows and the highlights a little bit so you can see them a little better. I'm going to play that and play the closing credits. Folks, thank you so much for tuning in. Dr. Frantz Whitfield, thank you for being here. And folks, we will see you at same time tomorrow.
Good evening, America. Obviously, there was a personal element to see my former vice president become the 46th president, to see Kamala Harris as our first woman vice president. But more broadly, I think inaugurations signal a tradition of a peaceful transfer of power that is over 2 centuries old.
Well, I think the fact three of us are standing here talking about a peaceful transfer of power speaks to the institutional integrity of our country.
So this is an unusual thing. We are both trying to come back to normalcy, deal with totally abnormal challenges, and do what we do best, which is try to make a more perfect union. It's an exciting time.
We've got to not just listen to folks we agree with, but listen to folks we don't. And one of my fondest memories of the inauguration was the grace and generosity that President Bush showed me and Laura Bush showed Michelle. And it was a reminder that we can have fierce disagreements and yet recognize each other's common humanity, and that as Americans, we have more in common than what separates us.
I think if Americans would love their neighbor like they would like to be loved themselves, a lot of the division in our society would end.
That's what this means. It's a new beginning. And everybody needs to get off their high horse and reach out to their friends and neighbors and try to make it possible.
If, in fact, as George said, we're looking for what binds us together. The American people are strong, they're tough, they can get through hardship, and there's no problem they can't solve when we're working together. I think that was the theme of Joe's inaugural speech, and I think all of us discovered that we're at our best when we're all moving in the same direction.
America's a generous country with people with great hearts. All three of us are lucky to be the president of this country. Mr. President, I'm pulling for your success. Your success is our country's success, and God bless you.
I'm glad you're there, and I wish you well. You have spoken for us today. Now you will lead for us, and we're ready to march with you. Good luck. God bless you.
Joe, I'm proud of you, and you and Kamala need to know that you've got all of us here rooting for your success, keeping you in our prayers, and we will be available in any ways that we can as citizens to help you guide our country forward. We wish you Godspeed.